I don't even know where to start with this. My wife Amy and I have been together for about 10 years. Everything seemed fine, maybe a little dull lately, but I guess that's normal after a while. We have a son, Jake, who's 12 and he's into his boarding school now. We're in our early 40s, both of us working stable jobs, living what I thought was a normal, comfortable life. I always trusted Amy, maybe too much. She's been a little bitchy at times, but honestly, I figured that was just her personality. You know, sharp-tongued and a bit self-absorbed, but I never imagined she'd cross the line like this. It all started a couple of weeks ago when I noticed she was acting strange. She'd be secretive about her phone, hiding her texts, and when I'd ask her about it, she'd brush me off with some excuse about work or friends. I didn't think much of it at first. I've learned over the years that women can be sneaky, especially when they're hiding something they're ashamed of. Still, I felt a nagging suspicion. But what really set me off was last weekend. It was the parents' weekend at Jake. School, a time I usually look forward to seeing him, catching up with his teachers, maybe having a few beers with the other parents. I forgot my wallet that morning. Ridiculous, I know, but I had a lot on my mind. As I rushed back home to grab it, I realized I'd left my phone on the kitchen counter. When I picked it up, I noticed I had a bunch of missed calls and messages from Amy, all from the same number. Curious, I looked closer. It was a New York number, one I didn't recognize. There were texts, flirty, somewhat suggestive messages, and the last message said, "Can't wait to see you tonight, babe." Now, I don't know if I've ever felt my stomach drop that hard. I stared at the screen, just stunned. I mean, I knew Amy was a little bitchy and full of herself, but this was next level. It wasn't just some innocent flirtation. It was clear she was having an affair. I didn't even bother to check more messages. I just stared at the phone, feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. My mind raced. I felt anger, betrayal, confusion. How the hell could she do this with the headmaster of Jake's school, no less? I had no idea she was capable of cheating with someone in a position of authority like that. I decided to go to the school myself to see if I could find out more. I didn't tell Amy I knew. I just drove there, my mind spinning. When I got to the campus, I saw her. She was with the headmaster, Mr. Carter, in a secluded corner. They were too close, talking intimately, leaning in, touching each other. The way she looked at him, like she was in some private world, made my blood boil. The worst part, she looked so comfortable, so confident, like she owned the place. It was like the Amy I knew had completely vanished, replaced by some cold, calculating bitch who'd throw everything away for a quick fuck. I watched for a while, trying to process what I was seeing. My stomach twisted. I wanted to yell, to march over and drag her away, but I couldn't move. My heart was pounding so loud I thought I'd pass out. Instead, I snapped a quick photo with my phone, just enough to prove it, but I didn't want to make a scene right then. I felt defeated and furious all at once. How long had this been going on? Was I just blind? How did I not see it? When I finally drove back home, I was shaking. It was late at night and Amy was already in bed pretending to sleep. I sat on the edge of the bed, clutching my phone, trying to breathe through the rage. My mind kept circling back to all the little signs I'd ignored, her late nights, her cold attitude, her dismissiveness about family time. I had this sinking feeling that I'd been living a lie for months, maybe longer. I knew I had to confront her, but I didn't know what I was going to say or even how I'd start. All I knew was that my world had just shattered, and I had no idea how to put the pieces back together. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. My head was pounding, and my stomach was twisted in knots. I kept replaying the scene from last night, Amy with that damn headmaster, Mr. Carter. I couldn't believe I missed all the signs, or maybe I just refused to see them. Now, sitting there in the quiet of my bedroom, I felt an overwhelming mix of anger and sadness. I trusted her for so long. We had our fights, sure, but I always believed she loved me. I kept staring at my phone, debating whether to tell anyone. I mean, what's the point? Who's going to believe me? And honestly, I was scared. I knew Amy was a bitch when she felt threatened, and if she found out I knew, she'd go full-on defensive mode. I decided I'd keep quiet for now, just gather my thoughts. I needed a plan. The day went on and I was a mess. I kept checking my phone, expecting some kind of message from her, some denial, some excuse, but there was nothing. No texts, no calls. That made me even more furious. How could she lie so easily? How could she pretend it never happened? I started thinking about what I wanted to do. Should I confront her? Should I leave? I wasn't sure. But I knew one thing. I had to be careful because Amy was good at spinning stories, and I didn't want to be caught off guard again. Meanwhile, Amy acted totally normal during the day. She was bitchy, snapping at Jake, acting like everything was fine. I watched her, trying to gauge her mood, trying to catch her in a lie, but she kept up the act well enough. She even sent me a few texts, pretending to be sweet and normal. "Hey honey, hope your day's good. Can't wait to see you tonight." It made me sick. She was so good at hiding what she was doing, like she was some kind of master manipulator. That evening, I decided I had to do something. I couldn't just sit around and let her keep lying. I was going to confront her face to face, but I didn't want to do it at home where she'd be ready for some defensive bullshit. So I told her I was working late, then I went to a bar nearby. I needed to think, to breathe, to get some clarity. I sat there, nursing a beer, feeling completely lost. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her with him, her leaning into him, her face relaxed, happy even. I felt so betrayed I could barely breathe. After a while, Amy called me. She sounded cheerful, maybe a little overly so, that bitch. She asked where I was, and I told her I was out with some colleagues. She said she was tired and needed a night to herself. I wanted to scream. How could she pretend nothing was wrong? How could she lie straight to my face after what I saw? I knew she was probably going to spin some ridiculous story, deny everything, or throw some blame my way. But I was done playing her game. I told her I'd be home late and hung up. That night I couldn't sleep. My mind kept going back to that moment at the school, her with him, so comfortable. I thought about how she always said she loved me, how she'd swear she was faithful. And yet here I was, discovering she'd been cheating on me with the headmaster of Jake's school. That was beyond anything I could have imagined. She's always been bitchy, yes, but I never thought she was capable of this level of betrayal. I kept asking myself, how long had this been going on? Was it just a one-time thing, or had they been sneaking around for months? I realized I was at a crossroads. Part of me wanted to confront her again, demand answers, maybe even tell her I knew. But another part told me to step back, think carefully. I was furious, yes, but I was also hurt. I felt like I'd lost the woman I married, the woman I thought I knew. I knew I couldn't pretend everything was fine anymore. The trust was gone, shattered. All I could do now was decide what I was willing to accept, or if I could accept anything at all. And honestly, I had no idea what that was yet. The following morning, I woke up with the weight of everything pressing down on me. I knew I couldn't keep pretending like I didn't see what I saw or ignore the fact that Amy had been lying through her teeth. The thing is, I've always been a pretty straightforward guy. If I trust someone, I trust them completely. But Amy, she's always been bitchy, manipulative when it suited her, and now I see she's capable of way more than I ever gave her credit for. Cheating with the headmaster of Jake's school. No less. That's not just a mistake, that's crossing every line possible. I decided I'd have to confront her, but not right away. I wanted to plan it properly. I knew her well enough now to realize she'd spin some bullshit if I went in unprepared. I had to catch her in a lie, or better yet, catch her in the act again. I didn't trust her to come clean. That's when I started digging into her phone and social media accounts. I needed proof, concrete proof, not just my suspicions. Over the next couple of days, I kept my eyes open. I watched her behavior, noticed little things, how she dressed more provocatively, stayed out later than usual, and whenever I asked about her day, she'd brush it off or snap at me. That bitchiness was always there, but now it felt sharper, more aggressive. It was like she was nervous, hiding something, and I was determined to find out what. One afternoon, I finally got a chance. She was at the grocery store, supposedly running errands. I snuck into her closet when she was gone, expecting to find something incriminating. Instead, I found her phone on her side table unlocked. I hesitated, then grabbed it. I knew I was crossing a line, but I couldn't help myself. I started scrolling through her messages, her photos, her recent contacts. It was like entering a whole new world I didn't know existed. There were more messages from Mr. Carter, flirty, suggestive, and downright disgusting. She sent him selfies, pictures of her in the mirror, and a string of texts about meeting up later. I couldn't believe I'd missed all of this before. It was so blatant, so obvious now. She had been lying right in my face for months. I felt a surge of rage, but also sadness. This wasn't just about betrayal, it was about how much I'd trusted her, how she'd taken that trust and thrown it away. I took screenshots of everything, her messages, the photos, her contact info. I needed proof, real proof, to confront her without any doubts. When she finally came home, I was waiting in the living room, my heart pounding like a drum. She looked at me, her bitchy smirk flickering for a second before she masked it with that overly innocent expression she always used when she was lying. I threw the phone on the table and looked her straight in the eyes. "We need to talk," I said calmly but firmly. Her face immediately changed, her expression turning defensive, her eyes narrowing. "What are you talking about?" she snapped. I just pushed the phone toward her. "Tell me about this, Amy. Or should I say, tell me what I'm supposed to believe now?" Her face went pale for a second, then she started to lie, of course. "That's not what it looks like," she said, her voice dripping with false innocence. "You're overreacting. Those are just messages. I didn't do anything. It's harmless, just some flirtation. You're making a big deal out of nothing." But I didn't buy it, not anymore. I knew I'd caught her red-handed, and her lie was so transparent I could see right through it. I felt a mix of anger and disappointment. How could she sit there and lie when I had concrete proof? I thought about the years we'd spent together, the family we built, the trust I'd given her. And now it felt like that trust was shattered beyond repair. I looked at her and realized I needed to decide what I was going to do about this. I wasn't going to let her keep manipulating me with her shitty attitude and lies. I knew I'd have to confront her head-on and figure out whether this marriage was salvageable or if I was better off walking away from everything. The confrontation didn't go the way I expected. I thought Amy would break down, maybe beg for forgiveness or at least admit she'd been wrong. Instead, she just sneered at me, her bitchy attitude on full display. "Oh wow, you're such a drama queen," she spat. "You really think I'm some kind of cheating bitch who can't keep her legs closed? Get over yourself. You're just jealous because I don't want some boring, predictable life with your ass. Mr. Carter's just a friend and you're overreacting because you're insecure." Her words hit me like a punch to the stomach. I felt anger rising, but beneath it was this deep disappointment, like I'd lost the woman I once loved, the woman I thought was my partner. She was lying but acting so damn confident, like I was the one with the problem. She kept spinning her bullshit, insisting she was innocent, that I was crazy for thinking she'd cheat. I looked at her, and for a moment I wondered if I was going crazy too. Maybe I had misread everything, maybe I was overreacting. But then I looked back at the screenshots and all that doubt evaporated. I told her I was done with her lies, that I couldn't believe I'd been so blind. I said I'd need some time to think, to figure out what to do. As much as I hated her right then, I knew I couldn't stay in a marriage built on deception. Not anymore. I packed a bag, told her I was staying at a friend's place for a while, and left her standing there, her bitchy smirk never leaving her face. That night I stayed at a motel, still trying to process everything. I felt angry, betrayed, and hopeless all at once. I kept asking myself how I missed so many signs, how I could have trusted her so blindly. It was like she'd been playing me for months, maybe longer. I kept staring at the screenshots on my phone, trying to make sense of it all. Did she really think she could get away with this? Did she even care about me? My mind kept circling around those questions, but the truth was I didn't have answers, only pain. The next day was a blur. I didn't want to go back home, not yet. Instead, I started calling some friends, people I knew I could trust. I needed someone to talk to validate what I was feeling. I told them everything, and every single one of them told me I was right to be furious, that I deserved better than a wife who'd cheat on me with the headmaster. Hearing that, part of me felt some relief. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't overreacting. This was real, and it hurt like hell. But what really got me was the aftermath. I knew I couldn't keep pretending like everything was fine. I had to make a decision. Was I going to fight for the marriage, or walk away and start over? Honestly, that was the hardest part. Because inside, a tiny voice kept telling me I still loved her, that maybe we could fix this. But every time I looked at those screenshots, I wondered if she'd ever truly change, or if this was just who. She was a manipulative, bitchy woman capable of crossing every ethical line just for a quick fuck. In the end, I decided I couldn't stay. Not because I didn't love her, but because I couldn't live with the betrayal anymore. I knew I'd be better off without her. But that didn't mean it was an easy choice. It's one thing to decide to leave. It's another entirely to pick up the pieces of a shattered life. I feel like I'm standing at the edge of something, not knowing what's next. But I do know this. Nobody deserves to be lied to, cheated on, or used like some disposable piece of shit. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's that sometimes you have to walk away from everything you thought was real, even if it breaks your heart. The days that followed were the hardest I've ever gone through. I kept replaying everything in my head, her sneering, those sickening lies, the way she looked at him like he was some kind of prize. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind. For years, I'd put her on a pedestal, thinking we had something solid, that our life was built on trust. And now that trust was gone, shattered into tiny pieces I didn't know how to pick up. I remember sitting in my car, just staring at the house from the driveway, feeling like I was about to break down. It was surreal, this life I'd built with her, the family we'd made, all of it crumbling so fast. I kept thinking about Jake, about how I'd explain this to him someday. How do you tell a 12-year-old that his mother betrayed him in the worst way? It tore me apart. I didn't want him to grow up thinking that betrayal was okay or that lying and cheating were just part of life. I had to be strong for him, if nothing else. I knew I had to decide whether or not to fight to save the marriage or just walk away for good. Honestly, the idea of staying felt impossible. Every time I thought about Amy, all I saw was that sneer, that cold look in her eyes. It was like she'd been another person all along. I knew her bitchiness was just a mask for something darker, something she'd hidden from me for years. I didn't want to be an idiot for staying, only to get more hurt down the line. But still, part of me hesitated. I remembered the good times, the moments when she was sweet and caring. Was that all fake? Or was she just a bitchy woman who snapped at everyone? I didn't know anymore. All I knew was that I couldn't trust her, not after what I had seen and what I had proof of. I felt like I was at a crossroads, and whatever path I chose, it would change everything forever. I reached out to a lawyer just to see what my options were. I wanted to be sure I was making the right decision. The lawyer told me that divorce was the most straightforward option, especially given the evidence I had. But even hearing that made my stomach churn. I didn't want to be the guy who threw away 10 years of marriage. I still loved her, or at least part of me did. But love wasn't enough anymore. Not when someone you trusted so much crossed every ethical line and used you for a quick fuck. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, going over everything again. The betrayal, the heartbreak, the anger. I kept telling myself I had to be strong. I couldn't let her manipulate me even now. She was probably lying, trying to spin her way out of it, but I knew the truth. I had the evidence. I saw her with my own eyes, and that was enough to make me walk away. That was the hardest part, to accept that love wasn't enough to save this mess. In my head, I kept asking myself, what now? Do I really want to start over? Do I want to try and find someone else, someone who won't betray me like this? Or is this just the end of my marriage, the end of my trust in her? I didn't have the answers yet. All I knew was that I had to focus on myself and my son, because at the end of the day, that's what mattered most. My heart was broken, but I had to stay strong for Jake, for myself. And so I made my decision. I'd file for divorce. I'd move out, start fresh, and rebuild my life. It wasn't the ending I wanted, but it was the only way I could see to reclaim my dignity. It's funny how betrayal can turn everything upside down so fast. One moment you're living your normal life, and the next everything's in ruins. But I learned something important. Sometimes walking away is the only way to find your peace again. And that's what I plan to do. The day I finally filed for divorce, I felt a strange mixture of relief and emptiness. Part of me was glad to be rid of the constant lie, the betrayal that had poisoned everything. I knew that I'd been right to walk away, even if it tore me apart inside. I sat there, staring at the paperwork, knowing I was closing a chapter of my life that I'd once believed was unbreakable. The shock of it all still lingered. I still couldn't believe someone I loved had been capable of such treachery. But I told myself that I deserved better, that I owed it to myself and to Jake to start over with honesty and integrity. The aftermath was a long, painful process. I moved out of the house, found a new place, and tried to focus on my son. I didn't want to let Amy's betrayal define me, but every now and then the anger would surge back. I'd think about her bitchy smirk, about how she always played the victim when things got tough, how she lied with such ease. It made me realize that some people just can't be trusted, no matter how much you want to believe in them. In the weeks that followed, I cut all contact with Amy. I didn't want her pulling me back into her web of lies or trying to manipulate the situation. I needed space, time to heal. I learned that forgiveness isn't something you do overnight, especially not when the betrayal runs so deep. Instead, I focused on rebuilding my confidence, on spending quality time with Jake, and on figuring out what I truly wanted from life after everything I'd been through. Looking back, I realized that this experience changed me. It stripped away some of the naive trust I had in people, but it also made me stronger and more cautious. I've come to accept that betrayal is a part of life, hard, painful, but sometimes necessary to find clarity. I learned that I don't have to tolerate being lied to or used, and that I have the power to walk away when something isn't right. Most importantly, I learned that self-respect has to come first. No matter how much I loved Amy, I couldn't allow her to destroy what little dignity I had left. I've come to understand that sometimes the best thing you can do is walk away, even if it feels like losing a part of yourself. Because in the end, you owe it to yourself to be with someone who respects you, who values honesty, and who doesn't cross every ethical line just for a moment of sex or ego. So now, I move forward with cautious hope. I've learned a lot about trust, betrayal, and what it truly means to be strong. And I want others out there to know, you don't have to stay in a betrayal just because you love someone. Sometimes, walking away is the bravest thing you can do. Because in the end, your own happiness and integrity matter more than any fleeting moment of comfort with someone who's willing to throw everything away.